other lecturers were complaining as well. So hopefully we don't have a similar situation this time around. I get kicked out of my own meeting, but yeah, let's see how this goes. And yeah, I need to still upload the other lecture. I had a little bit of an issue here and there with Teams, so I just want to make sure about the recording. But I will definitely make sure that is everything that I would have done had I not been cut off is available to you guys. Right. Okay. So I'm going to start off with a question, and you're welcome to use your microphone if you want. If you want to type a response, no worries. Can you be fired for social media posts that you make? So that would be a post you make on Facebook, on Instagram, TikTok, X. Do you think in South Africa we permit people to be fired for that? And I'm going to go further and say, if you say yes or no, I would like to know why you say that.
I'd say yes, if you are leaking maybe company confidential information.
So Senesiwe says, if you're leaking company sensitive information, yeah, that's a definite boot. Precious?
I also think it's a yes, because your profile, it's actually representing your company. So if you post a nasty or maybe a racist post on Facebook, people tend to link you with the company. So they think the company promotes racism, as an example. So it might damage the company's reputation. So that's why you need to be mindful on what you post on Facebook and what not to post. And other companies do have the social media policy.
Yeah. Very good. Hannah, do you want to add anything to that, or do you agree with the other two ladies? Putting poor Hannah on the spot. So thumbs up. Yeah. So yes, you guys are 100% correct. You can, in fact, be Anna says everything sounded good, and she's spot on. So yes, you can in fact be dismissed for what you post on social media. The most famous case we've had in our law is that of Penny Sparrow, who made defamatory remarks on Facebook, and most people on Facebook, their about section, it includes who they work for. So as Precious pointed out, you're kind of associated with your work, and vice versa. So if you make a statement, the assumption is, well, okay, is that the company's view on that as well? And Penny Sparrow actually got dismissed for it. There were a number of other cases where similar things happen in South Africa, and it's been held to be legal. Companies can, and the reason for that being that companies can be held liable for the post made by their employees. So it doesn't matter whether or not the company actually subscribes to it or not. The company itself can actually be held liable. And also, if we look at legislation, the employee has a common law duty to act in good faith towards its employer. It has a common law duty to protect the company's reputation. And social media posts that are defamatory or offensive or bring the company into disrepute can be grounds for disciplinary action. So when a company is taking the decision, do we dismiss a person, they will look at the nature of the post and check, is it defamatory? Is it offensive? Is it bringing the company into disrepute? Is it leading to financial damages or reputational damages to the company? And they will make a decision based on that. There was a case where a person had, it was a sexual assault case, and a specific employee had actually made comments where he was shaming the victims of the sexual assault. and another individual had read this comment and comments that he wrote, was multiple comments, and actually contacted, and now this guy, you click on his profile, you can see who he works for. So this guy actually contacted the company and said, listen, with screenshots, this guy says he works for you. This person has made these statements. I just want to clarify whether or not this is how the company reacts to sexual assault. And the person was suspended with immediate effect. And they ended up putting the person in a disciplinary, and they ended up dismissing the person. There's another case that I actually saw, and I was laughing. I was laughing, but I also wasn't laughing, because it was a government employee that on a legal forum actually made a statement, and the government department that this person works for is a department that has been in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons before, about misappropriation of funds and all of that. And a person had asked a question about an investigation that was taking place about fraud. And the fraud amount was relatively little. We're not looking at thousands of rands or that sort of thing. So the person was like asking, can the company investigate this as fraud? And what ended up happening was, there's now a bunch of comments being given by people. And the one person, this, like I said, this government employee, commented about, yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous for the employer to want to investigate that. Surely they've got better things to do with their time. And somebody then asked the person, well, surely your employer would want to know if there was fraud being committed. And then this person went ahead and blasted her employer. And my employer won't care. And my employer, if they want to do stuff like that, they must check and stuff like that. And I'm looking at this person, I'm going, lady, do you understand that the place that you're working for is in fact constantly in the news for this very reason? And you are now basically saying, well, actually kind of you making us understand why. Because if that's the attitude of people working there, then we can understand what's happening. Precious is pointing out here, there's an ongoing case for a gentleman working for one of the state-owned companies who imitated a physically challenged kid on TikTok. Yeah, and the scary part for me is, I mean, I don't want to go into politics, I don't like it, but I have friends in America, and some of those friends are African American and minority groups. And if I look at their sentiments, it's actually sad, because the one guy actually said to me, it's like all of a sudden with the people that are in power, it's become okay. Everybody that has been hiding their discrimination and their racist behavior and their mocking of disabled and this and that, everybody that's been hiding that now suddenly feels that because the people that are in power are openly mocking the disabled, are openly being racist, it's now okay for me to be racist too. And that's kind of a scary thing. And you know, you unfortunately, whether you like it or not, you're tied to the company. You are associated with the company. And because of that, the company can be viewed as somebody that doesn't have, or company that doesn't particularly care. So it's an extremely problematic issue. And I appreciate the fact that you mentioned a social media policy, because that's now becoming, I see now, it didn't used to be a thing. In the last couple of contracts that I signed, you have a social media policy where they explicitly state, look, this is, you need to understand that you are actually associated with the company, and we can take steps against you if you make any controversial or detrimental statements. So, yeah, And the other scary thing for me is if I see some of the comments of some people where they legit still think, yeah, they can't fire me. Yes, they can. You're not acting in your own capacity, unfortunately. The other big thing that people do not realize, and here again, I've got personal experience, is people post things on Facebook, they post it on WhatsApp, and then they delete it. And then they think, but okay, if I've deleted it, it's gone. Nobody can see anything. And unfortunately, anything that's on the internet kind of stays there indefinitely, because before you can even delete the message, it's already been saved to I don't know how many servers, backed up to how many servers, somewhere on a cloud. So it's not on a physical device. Yeah, your digital footprint. And I'm actually going to, in the comments, I'm going to put in 2 documentaries that if you ever get the chance, I strongly suggest you watch it. Not because it's just, it's very thought-provoking, and it's actually kind of a bit scary in terms of what is actually happening. I'm now trying to think what the other one's name is. There we go. Okay, so The Great Hack and the Social Dilemma. Those are like 2 documentaries they have on Netflix that specifically look at social media and our digital footprints. And we don't realize how extensive that is. And anyway, to get back to the other case, they deleted the posts. And now, unfortunately, at the time, I was working as the IT teacher at the school. So now if there's anything digital, then you get roped in to assist. And what had happened was, in both instances, defamation suits were filed against the children who posted the comments. And the one was Facebook, the one was WhatsApp. At that point, Facebook and WhatsApp was not under the same company, so they were still separate entities. And in both instances, like I said, a case was opened with the police, and I was then told to go and get the evidence. So basically, all I did was I got the police case number. Now I have to email the people at WhatsApp, and I've got to email the people at Facebook and say, hi, I'm so-and-so. This is what's happening. This is the police case number. I need this information from you, please. And in both instances, when I walked in with a file, because they actually got back to me rather quickly in both instances with the information requested. Hopefully they verified the case number. The moment that I could actually produce the texts that had, and the messages, the Facebook messages posts that had been deleted, because now I printed out this evidence, and I put it down in front of them, like all of a sudden these kids look like they're going to pass out any moment now, because they honestly, but both of them, first reaction, but I deleted it. And I have to say, like, nothing's ever deleted really on the internet. Because I mean, I basically had the whole trail, including when they posted the messages, where they posted the messages from, the computer number that they used, or the cell phone identifier that they used. And the same with the deletion data. I could tell them exactly at what time, where, and what device was used to delete the data. So it was like a slam dunk in terms of that. And they just got the fight of their absolute life. So we live in a world where I think people feel, and I always say to my IT students, would you say something on the stuff you're saying on social media? If you wouldn't say it to somebody's face, then don't put it on social media. And I've shown them some posts, and I'm like, would you say this to somebody's face? And they go, no. I'm like, why not? Because they're going to clobber me. Like, yeah, they are going to clobber you. If you say, so if you wouldn't say it to their face because they're going to clobber you, why do you think it's okay to put it online? We call them keyboard warriors. We literally, like, really. You know, we taught that, no, things are safe, and they are not necessarily safe. Yeah, so it's a very complicated world that we live in, unfortunately, and we need to be aware of our responsibilities as digital citizens. So when we look at ethical issues in IT, and we're going to spend a couple of sessions on this chapter, it's a relatively lengthy chapter. Because of the widespread nature of IT, there is ample opportunity for unethical behavior because it's so easy to collect and disseminate information. Precious was talking about the digital footprint. You know, you don't realize how your data is actually being manipulated without you even realizing it. And that's why I recommended those 2 documentaries to you guys, because it actually gives you a very scary idea of what can happen and what is being done. I mean, I'm a very big cricket fan. I am a fan of rugby, but I would, if I had to choose between watching a cricket match live and a rugby match live, I'll probably go with a cricket match. I prefer cricket, but I wanted to take my dad to a rugby match here. So I never really buy rugby tickets. So this time when I went online and I went to buy some rugby tickets, and all of a sudden in my social media feed and on websites where they have advertisements, all of a sudden, I'm just being bombarded by advertisements for rugby gear and rugby merch. And I'm like, where's this coming from? And so you don't actually realize how much your data is being mined. And then they use that information. They sort of, oh, she bought rugby tickets, so surely she wants rugby merch. So now it's targeted advertising, which I didn't actually even give permission for. But it's being done. So yeah, you need to be extremely careful what we do. And we're seeing an increase in cybercrime and cyber fraud and identity theft, intellectual property theft. They give you the US statistics in your book. I went online now. The latest statistics isn't available in a report format yet, but the scary part for me was when I looked at the identity theft stats for South Africa. And we saw a 400% increase between April 2023 and April 2024. 400% increase. That's crazy. I mean, one identity is being stolen every 2 seconds. And that's thousands of rands. They've got the dollar figures in your book. That's gone. And then we've got business identity theft, which then leads to financial fraud and tax fraud and website defacement and trademark ransom and all those sorts of things. So there's a lot of crimes that are happening. Excuse me. A lot of crimes that are happening because of this whole digital revolution and all of that stuff. And information isn't safe. We need to take actions to safeguard it. And I was actually having a conversation. We have measures to safeguard information. The POPI Act is designed to protect our personal information. Theoretically, people should not be able to phone us randomly. One of my students in my class today actually said to me that he purchased a property and then he got phoned by some random company. And he was like, but look, where did you get my information from? And the realtor had given him his information. And he was like, but no, it doesn't work like that. And they were like, no, but the real estate company is allowed to sell the information once. And he's like, no, that's not how it works. So I think we have the POPI Act, we have the Cybersecurity Bill. And we spoke about the Cybersecurity Bill a little bit last year. But if you're not going to actually enforce the legislation, I mean, I saw a bunch of articles where people were like going, yo, POPI, that's great, but show us the numbers, show us the jail time, show us the fines that have been issued, show us who you've locked up, show us who you've fined. You say you're going to fine people by so many million. How many people did you fine with at that million amount? How much money did you make? And they couldn't produce any tangible evidence of people actually properly being prosecuted here and there. So we have, like I said, I mean, our cybersecurity bill is not too bad. It blatantly says if you've got this type of information, these are the steps you need to take to make sure random people can't get hold of it. But it doesn't work like that. Can I quickly see who of you have Truecaller on your cell phones? Yeah, so Precious, Hannah, Senesibe, do you run Truecaller?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so Truecaller is an app that you install on your phone, and it allows you that if somebody phones you that's not in your address book, especially, it will indicate to you who or what this person is. And if it comes up red, like when your phone rings and you get like this big red thing, usually what that means is it's a person that's known for spamming. So what I can do with the Truecaller app is if I get a phone call, I can actually send a message to Truecaller to say this is a telemarketer, or this is a spam call, or a whatever. And I can give a little report and description and all of that stuff. And I can actually set it up that they block certain numbers, or I can mine just with certain numbers automatically blocks them because they are known as spam. But now programs like that should theoretically not be necessary, because how are these people getting my cell phone number? The POPI Act was supposed to prevent this sort of thing from happening, yet here we are, all installing Truecaller or similar programs to avoid being spammed. So yeah, it's actually kind of scary how we don't actually take personal information seriously. This is the statistics from 2024. As I said to you, this is worldwide statistics. The 2025 report isn't available yet, but you can see the financial costs here and the time spent trying to resolve these crimes and all of that. It's absolutely insane. So, yeah, definitely a much bigger problem, and our access to cell phones and the like doesn't help. So when we look at behavior online, one of the things you should be able to do is distinguish between legal behavior that's ethical, legal behavior that's unethical, illegal behavior that's ethical, and illegal behavior that's unethical. All right. So I've given you some examples here of legal behavior that's ethical and unethical, and illegal behavior that's ethical or unethical. And yeah, as you can see, that the poor cigarette companies and vape companies are this is from a journal article. So they were being investigated from a legal perspective, and like, so this is like examples they came up with to differentiate between the concepts. So offering people a free e-cigarette device, if they get rid of conventional cigarettes, it's both legal and ethical. But the packaging of cigarettes to target a specific group of people, though it's legal, is unethical. I actually watched, are you guys aware of the documentary Big Vape? It sounds like I watch a lot of television. I don't actually. But there's a documentary Big Vape, and it's about the boom of the vape business. And they actually show you how they specifically one brand of vape, the vaping device, how they actually marketed it. And they were extremely savvy in terms of who they gave devices to. So it was basically people that were influencers to some extent, in some shape, way, or form. And the teenagers would latch onto this. And what they don't say is that actually there is a certain degree of nicotine in some of these products and all of that. So now you've got teenagers vaping, and it's socially acceptable. And parents were unaware of what was happening because of the way that the vape's designed, so you can't really see the thing. You might be able to smell it, but I mean, they would make excuses for what the smell was. So, and the company execs actually blatantly admitted that they used the legal loophole, that they would design the packaging in such a way that it would be attractive to younger users. So it's not illegal for them to do that, but it is definitely unethical. In terms of illegal behavior that's actually ethical, the vaping industry, having outdoor bans on e-cigarettes, but there's no proven risk to bystanders. So if you can't legally prove that there is an actual health issue, you can't actually ban it. But knowing that it, I mean, like I said, they're still busy with the data and all those things and so forth. So it's, yeah, the latest data kind of tosses this idea out of the park, or out of the bus. But when it was new, because they didn't know the effect, they kind of said to people, okay, you know, just as a safeguard, rather don't smoke outside. And then the vaping industry came back and said, but hang on a second, you can't ban us if you haven't got evidence that there is an issue. So it was ruled illegal to ban outdoor vaping, despite the fact that the decision to try and ban outdoor vaping was made based on ethical principles. And then something that's illegal and unethical is one of the developers of the vape didn't mention how many toxins were present during test trials. So they actually sold people on the idea that, you know, this is fine. You don't have to worry about it. If you look at the very early cigarette ads, I don't know what ages you guys are, but do you remember a time when you could still do cigarette ads and you still saw cigarette ads? Oh, now I feel old. Yeah, if you look at the old cricket, like Benson and Hedges was like a cricket sponsor. So you'd Benson Hedges all over the show, and these ads for cigarettes and stuff, and they would like have pregnant women smoking in the ad campaigns, and they would have like doctors smoking and saying how good it is for their stress levels and their this and their that. So yeah, the whole thing was just completely buggered up and based on false information, because they were well aware of the fact that these are harmful chemicals inside the cigarettes, but we just carry on anyway. And that is, to a certain degree, also what happened with the vape industry. There were people that were saying, look, there are toxins in here, but we're still going to advertise this to people. We're still going to sell this to people. We're going to sell this to teenagers. And yeah, that big vape, very interesting documentary about how the business actually went. It's a good study in marketing as well, by the way, how they managed to market their product, but also a lesson in illegal and unethical behavior. Okay, so you should be able to identify the difference between the two. All right. And be able to give examples of such. Are you guys all right with this one? Cool bananas. Yeah, you kind of have to use your moral compass, and you also kind of need to like just have basic understanding of the law. I don't think they're going to try and trick you in terms of anything. Okay. So when we look at ethics with regards to computer networks, the idea is that we have open and fair access to everybody. Otherwise, we are excluding people from these networks. And specifically, when we look at networking ethics, social media networking ethics, there are 3 pillars to that: authenticity, transparency, and communication. So when we talk about authenticity, people must be trustworthy and sincere. So they must be who they say they are. And if they say, I'm going to be doing X, they must do that. They mustn't try and harm other people. Transparency, honesty, and again, openness, no hidden agenda. So if I am being sponsored by a specific company, I disclose, listen, I'm being sponsored by this company. I saw a post from somebody yesterday, an entertainer, and they had a bit of misfortune with regards to their accommodation, and they had a bit of misfortune with regards to their transportation. And he then asked people to make recommendations in the comments. And then he had a subsequent post where he said, listen, by the way, people were recommending this service. I just want to categorically state, I'm not being sponsored by these folks. I don't know, I do not know who they are, but I'm curious because I went onto the net and I saw this business and I did a bit of Googling and all of that. And it looks like an interesting concept. So can you guys like share with me what your experiences have been with this company? Because I'm not, you know, advertising them here. I've literally got no ties, but the name sounds interesting. So it was just a mention. So being open and honest about the fact that, yes, I am mentioning these people, but I have no ties to them. And when you are being sponsored by people, saying so. So no hidden agenda. I'm not, on the sly marketing something and now I get money because I've been pumping product. And I didn't clearly indicate I'm pumping the product because I'm being sponsored by these guys. In terms of communication, free communication, knowing that people are who they say they are. You're not secretly, you think you're chatting to somebody of your own age and own gender, and then secretly you're actually chatting to some creepy person that is 60 and still living in their mother's. This is now the stereotypical answer, okay? Creepy person that's 60 years old and still living in their mother's basement. To use the very stereotypical example. So, we're being honest in our communications. And then when we talk about business networks, the businesses must also be open and fair in their access to all users. So we need to cater for people of different walks of life, and that includes catering for people with disabilities. So if you have certain posts, have subtitles. If a person might be hearing impaired. If a person's visually impaired, have there some sort of audio descriptive sound or something like that. Not having any racial discrimination or religious discrimination or anything like that in your business networks. So businesses must be open and fair with that. Here there are 3 branches: utilitarian networking, emotional networking, and then virtuous networking. So everybody acts in good faith. So in other words, everybody's open, everybody's honest. There's no hidden fine print. What you see is what you get. The ability of businesses to empathize and be ethical in all situations. Understand that emotion is not important. People are going to criticize businesses. Can I quickly just kind of see by a show of hand, who of you on social media have sort of seen somebody criticize a business, and then a bunch of people ask them, but have you spoken to the business owner? And then they go, no, I haven't done that. Precious, is your hand up?
No, I wanted to react. Sorry.
Oh, okay. No worries. I just wanted to double check before I now don't give you a stage. Yeah. And then you ask them, but have you contacted the business owner? And like, what's that going to accomplish? And I'm thinking, you're literally slandering this business. They could actually take you to court for what you're saying. What do you think by posting on social media, you're going to get a free meal or a free beer, or I don't know? No. Do the moral thing and go and talk to the business first and have them be able to respond. And that said, though, I've seen businesses where they do get criticized, completely lose it, and then go off something terrible at the people criticizing them. And it's like, you can't respond to your, I guess now, former customers like that. And also, if I look at how you're carrying on, I don't want to support you. Because what if I legit have a complaint? I mean, I'm not going to nag for no reason. I'm not going to conjure up a complaint just because I can. Some people kind of, I don't know, that they tend to do that. That's not sort of my thing. And as you say, it's a new norm, especially on social media. I've seen a few ones where social or influencers or whatever, they go to a restaurant expecting a free meal because they now supposedly going to promote the business, and then freak out when the business says, no, you need to pay for your meal. And then want to slander the business. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. But as a business, like I said, you're going to be at some point criticized for something. You need to take it on the chin and you need to act responsibly. You can't also now go back and immediately bash the person that criticized you. Doesn't matter how incorrect the statement is. And as hard as it is to be objective in your response and neutral in your response, you kind of need to do that. It's not going to end well for you if you don't. Because all you're doing is then people that actually would have supported you otherwise and would have actually been in your corner in the argument now turn against you as well. Then utilitarian networking. Be truthful. Don't waste other people's time. Social media is available everywhere, so you need to be aware of that. It's not an isolated thing anymore. You don't have to go to trouble to see certain things. So as an organization, as a business, you need to be aware of that. That even if people aren't specifically looking for you on social media, it might pop up in their feed anyway. So you must at all times be truthful. And also, if you are making posts, don't make these exorbitant long posts where, people's time is valuable. So show respect for their time as well. We're all digital citizens. And we all, because we are digital citizens, kind of need to try and adhere to being good digital citizens. So we have to use technology safely, ethically, responsibly. And how do we do that? We exhibit online etiquette. If I type in all caps, what does that mean, actually? Shouting, yeah. And exclamation marks and all that stuff. That's not good etiquette. It's actually rather rude. Not protecting people's privacy. So now blasting people left, right, and center, or tagging people in 1 million posts. When they don't necessarily want to be tagged in it, or whatever the case might be. Oversharing information. And this is like a practical example that hasn't got to do with the world of work. But how many times have you been to a wedding and then before the couple can actually release their or post a photograph or a video of the wedding, there are 1 million people now posting their videos and their photographs. Or somebody has a gender reveal. And before the couple can even put the thing on social media, 5 other people have done so. I was in a car accident a couple of years ago, and it was out in the middle of nowhere. And my family and my friends were not aware of the fact that I'd been in an accident. Neither was the family and friends of my one specific passenger that was also in the vehicle. And the scary part was that that specific person, her parents were overseas at the time. And somebody had on social media posted an image of the vehicle that we were in after the crash. And what I was told was that there were people that were very quickly trying to get onto it and saying to them, listen, stop posting about this. There are family members who have not been informed yet. Because if you looked at the vehicle, and also they were sort of saying people are critical and that sort of thing, it would have caused complete panic. So they would, so fortunately, a couple of our friends and whatever had seen this, and they were now actively trying to work to get hold of our family members so that they don't see it before they hear anything, or else, because they knew what vehicle we were traveling in, what road we were on, etc., etc. Because people are, oh, there's an accident, take a photograph, send a video. Death. It's small things, but we've kind of almost become desensitized to that sort of thing. Because we do. And we're not thinking about the consequences. Criminal cases. There was a case here in Gqeberha where a family got murdered. And people were immediately pointing fingers, and it's so-and-so, and it's that, and it's that, and it's always this person. And I'm thinking, can you not keep your mouth shut? Somebody's mother is dead. Somebody's father is dead. Now you're making insensitive comments, pointing fingers. No, man. So we have that responsibility to protect privacy. Do's and don'ts of IT. Knowing how to stay safe online, especially if you've got children. Protecting and respecting intellectual property and not just randomly using another artist's music or this or that. Or photographs. We see that a lot where people are taking photographs that was taken by somebody, posting it as if it's their own, and not acknowledging the original person. Knowing what your digital footprint is. Keeping it clean as far as, well, trying to keep it clean as far as possible. I know some people that every single flipping morning, they would say, checking in at this gym. And it's about the same time. And I'm thinking to myself, do you understand that you are creating a pattern? Everybody now knows that every single morning, around about that time, you are at that location. And now it becomes a safety issue. Then lastly, healthy usage patterns. We have become a nation and a country of instant gratification. And it's interesting to see how people react when you take social media away, when you take a cell phone away, how they react to that. I'm noticing on my side, have you noticed any patterns in people now, things that before social media versus after social media? Before cell phone versus after cell phone? Behavioral pattern changes. Because I've observed that people become more easily irritable. And And people will sit in the same room and they don't have conversations anymore. I had to laugh. A guy that my dad knows is extremely inquisitive, nosy actually. And he was in a restaurant and there were two teenagers sitting opposite each other, both on their phones. And he actually walked over to them and he asked them, I'm kind of curious, why aren't you two talking to each other? Why are you sitting on your cell phones? And they were like, no, we are talking to each other. We're talking to each other via the cell phones. They were sitting across from each other in a coffee shop. But instead of having a verbal conversation, they were having a conversation on the cell phone. And I'm like, what? No, man. It's absolutely nuts. Actually, we see things like irritability. We see inability to communicate, to create relationships. I don't want to call it the snowflake mentality, but that's kind of a term that's being tossed around. Not being able to form relationships, not being able to take healthy criticism, completely freaking out when you are given criticism in the real world, spelling, grammar, attention span. Those are all things that are actually affected by this. There's an article now, I actually put it onto your ARC site, where they talk about brain rot for children, where this guy was saying this is the first time Gen Z is the first generation, and this is a blanket statement, spoiler alert. So just know it's a blanket statement, not everybody, but Gen Z is the first generation to cognitively perform worse than their parents. They saw a systematic improvement in cognitive ability in each generation over that of their parents until they got to Gen Z. And all of a sudden, Gen Z is not performing as well cognitively as their parents. And it's being attributed to social media, to digitization. So it's not that these things are bad. The thing is just you need to manage it. That's the thing. So where do you find the balance? What is healthy usage? What is healthy usage in an organization? At what point do we actually say we're having a sit down and having a physical meeting where we look each other in the eye and have discussions? Right. Censorship. Private information versus public information. Okay. So certain public information, we might know certain things about the military, etc., but other things are being kept from us for the plain and simple reason that it's a public policy issue. It can cause upset among some people. It might not be viewed as conducive to a healthy public environment, healthy citizenship. Then the moment that something is offensive to a certain political party or religion or cultural group, that is something that you want to censor. You want to definitely discourage that sort of behavior. And we see that, again, public information, social media, it's going to be public. Then private information. Okay. This is posted by an individual person, so it's not posted by the organization itself or a public platform. So like I said, you need to, as an organization, decide what information you make public and what information you do not make public. We don't censor ourselves, do we? Now, just because we feel that we have, and I've seen this argument a lot, we feel that we have the freedom of speech. The Constitution says we have the right to freedom of speech. Does that mean we can say exactly what we want to? No. Because you can make races, just because I have a certain opinion about a religion or sexual orientation or a race or whatever, doesn't mean I can verbally express it everywhere. It's offensive. And like I said, people love to use that excuse, but yeah, I've got freedom. I can say what I want to. No, you can't, because some things are just plain offensive and actually quite just disgusting. So the court is not going to find in your favor. Let me put it that way. I'm going to end off with the censorship slide. Otherwise, I'm going to get into about 20 more, or a topic that has like 20 slides, and it's going to be problematic. Access restrictions to the web. There are programs we can use for ourselves, programs to protect our children. We can sort of see what activities they are doing. We can limit their screen time. We can monitor what they're accessing. We can block certain sites. It's becoming more and more difficult to do that because, of course, the people are aware of what is being blocked and they find ways of sneaking around it. I will post some videos and things you can have a look at and think about. Some web browsers have built-in features. DSTV has the parental control, that sort of thing. And then we've got countries who flat out banned Facebook, certain social media, etc., or even the internet as a whole. You can see it's communist countries for the most part. And what we're starting to see now also is there are a lot of schools in South Africa now are actually starting to implement device-free schools. So they're actually banning devices. You're not allowed to take a cell phone onto the premises. So, yeah. Questions, comments, concerns from your side? And the reasoning, by the way, is amongst other things like cyberbullying, etc., happening. Attention span. It's actually been proven that if you learn on a screen if you engage with the content by writing, you learn more by writing than engaging with the screen. So that we're going back to the older times to try and reverse the cognitive decline. So I see Precious is busy typing a comment. Yeah, as you say, you prefer not to post anything on your social media pages because, you never know who steals it. I mean, I've had how many people that I know on social media have said, listen, don't accept another friend request from me. I've been hacked. And yeah, I mean, I wasn't aware that we actually block social media. Well, I don't go, that shows you I don't go on here, but yeah, they do that. I guess in part also to avoid the distraction. Yeah. Any questions, comments, concerns from your side, ladies? Thank you so much for your participation. As always, a pleasure. And I will send communications regarding posts and so forth on the YouTube channel, and I'll post some videos and a couple of articles you can have a look at. And then I will see you ladies next week in our session. Looking forward to it. Have a fantastic day, fantastic weekend, and we will chat again.